words about her, and I don't know about you folks, but if it's good enough for Howard Coble, by golly, she's good enough for me. Without any further ado, I would like to call on Congresswoman Renee Elmers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and to share some remarks. Give her a warm hand, please.
Thank you so much, and will you please join me in our nation's Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. It is an absolute honor to be here today. And yes, with those new district lines, I am going to be representing some of Alamance County, Snow Camp area, and I'm very excited about that. You know, yes, Howard Coble has served you well, and he has been wonderful to me in Congress. Of course, I am a new freshman. Politics was never going to be on my career path, but when President Obama put forward that awful, hideous piece of legislation that we all know now as Obamacare, I knew I had to come out and speak with my husband against it. Because of the hard work that so many did for me in the Republican Party in District 2, we were able to defeat Bob Etheridge handily. And I've been working for you ever since. We have so much to do at the federal level. We will continue on, but that's what makes it so important for why we have got to get Pat McCrory elected as governor. What I can be doing in Washington with cutting devastating regulations, what has hurt Copland Industries? I had the pleasure of speaking with the Copland family before we got started. You know, they're a business that they built. Yes, President Obama. Look around you. Government and huge government interference. This came because those individuals, the Coplands, risked everything to build a company and create jobs and do the best they can do. Now it's my job to make sure that they can keep it, that they can create more jobs, that they can thrive into the new economy, because this Obama economy is killing all of us. Pat McCrory knows that. While I'm in Washington working on repealing Obamacare for good, and while I'm working on repealing all of the terrible regulations and tax reform at the federal level, back home, Pat McCrory will be putting forth good, strong legislation for North Carolina that will do all of that. I've been a big supporter of Pat McCrory for a long time. He has done the work, and in this election, those who do the work are the ones who are going to win. You all are doing it. I thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for being here and understanding the importance of this. It's going to be incredible for you to hear from Scott Walker, because he there again has been someone who has worked so hard to achieve and has earned it. And that's what this is about. That's who we are as Americans. We work hard, we achieve, we provide for our families, and we will continue to do that. God bless all of you. God bless this great country, and may Pat McCrory be the governor we are all looking forward to. Thank you.
I think we got a good one, don't you? Yeah. It's now my distinct honor to introduce to you North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Paul Newby. For 8 years, he has passionately served on the North Carolina Supreme Court. He is a man of the highest integrity and the highest character, and I cannot emphasize to you enough the importance of making sure that he continues to serve us in the North Carolina Supreme Court. He did do his undergraduate work at Duke, but he did finally wise up and go to Carolina for his doctorate. Couldn't help it. That's the last jab of the day. Go Hills. But in all seriousness, the thing that I think that is most important that you take with you, it is a nonpartisan election, and you've got to look for his name. But you need to understand something. Judges, other attorneys, the business community, and particularly past Supreme Court justices, both Republican and Democrat, have endorsed this man. Get behind him. We're so glad to have you with us here. Judge Newby, please come forward.
It is such a privilege for me to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you for that kind introduction. And, you know, I do tell people the only four years I ever spent out of state were the 4 years I went to Duke. So, you know, got to kind of figure that out. The judges, you know, we have great candidates for the legislative branch that makes the law. Your own senator here, such an outstanding advocate for you there in Raleigh. We have just a wonderful person, a young man by the name of Pat McCrory. I met when he was in the 5th grade. I was in the 6th grade. I know I look a lot older, but believe me, I've known Pat since he was in the 5th grade, and he is as authentic an individual as you will find. And I'm just so glad that he's willing to serve our state in this manner. But let me say a word about the judges, a topic near and dear to my heart. Nobody knows who we are. That's not a bad thing, because if you see a judge, it's not about the NFL game, the players, it's about the referee. That's always a bad sign. The one who's supposed to simply call the balls and strikes, the judge who's simply supposed to follow the law. When judges do that, it's not news. It shouldn't be news. It's the way it should be. Yet across our nation, and certainly Governor Walker has experienced this, when you see an activist judge who inserts himself or herself into the political process, thwarting the will of the people, being a liberal activist, because they can't win in the public square, so they take it to the supreme power of the judiciary. That's wrong. That violates our separation of powers. That violates the idea that legislative branch makes the laws, and the judicial branch is simply there to carry out the law. Now, thank you. I spoke to a Rotary Club today in 1865, a Union soldier stole North Carolina's original copy of the Bill of Rights. We're the only state to vote down the federal Constitution. We did because there was no protection of fundamental rights or freedoms. It was only after there was a proposed Bill of Rights that North Carolina became the 12th state of the Union. So in 2003, I did an undercover sting operation that got back our original copy of the Bill of Rights that was stolen in 1865, National Treasure 3. There it is. Invariably, the question I get asked is, oh, you're a justice on the Supreme Court, never met one before, can you help me with my speeding ticket? Well, if you got a speeding ticket in North Carolina Supreme Court, fire your lawyer. It's not going to be a good day for you. But it does make me appreciate that there is generally little contact between the average citizen and the judicial branch. And that's not a bad thing, okay? We don't want a lot of people going through the court system. But it does make me appreciate that I need to emphasize the different levels of court. The trial court, district court, I imagine here in Alamance County, and I see folks from other counties as well, there will be local court races, district superior court. It's not about the name. It's not about other aspects. Look at the qualifications. Look at the resumes of the candidates themselves. Look at the ones, my belief, that are going to be constitutional conservatives that will simply, fairly, and impartially apply the law. Statewide, you folks will be voting on 3 Court of Appeals judges. We have one with us today, David Robinson. David, stand up here if you would. David is a well-qualified attorney from Raleigh that's running for the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals does the yeoman's work. They decide about 1,800 cases a year. They are what's called an error correction court. They're not a policy court. It's up to the Supreme Court, where we look at judicial policy throughout the state, and we are the final say. Not even the U.S. Supreme Court can undo something that our court does that's based on the state constitution and state law. Who your judges are, your justices are, truly impacts your lives. And so I would ask you, when you go to vote, be sure you look at who the candidates are. Certainly remember Dave Robinson and Chris Dillon and Marty McGee with the Court of Appeals. With the Supreme Court, not too tough, just one candidate you got to remember on the Supreme Court. And of course, you got to remember Scooby-Dooby, vote for newbie, right? Particularly in the judicial races, we need your help. Nobody knows who we are. 51% of North Carolinians think we're appointed, not elected. If you will send out emails on our behalf to your friends and family, people will turn around and say thank you, because they just don't know who they are. Folks have been doing that for me, and it's amazing the emails that they get back from people who say, you know, usually I don't even vote for a judge because I just don't know who they are. We need your help. If you want to have a conservative judiciary, maintain a conservative judiciary, we need your help. Remember Scooby-Dooby, vote for newbie. Remember the judges on the Court of Appeals. Let me close with what I think is inspirational. Why do I do this? Why, instead of on a beautiful day like this, am I not out riding a horse or playing tennis or something like that? Why am I going across the state trying to maintain my seat on the Supreme Court? As was said, I've been endorsed by 4 former Chief Justices, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, a lot of bipartisan support across the state. Only justice in the history of the state to be endorsed by the State Chamber of Commerce, because I have a business background, endorsed by the Federation of Independent Business Owners, the small business owners. Particularly for the business climate, they like me because I'm predictable and I'm consistent and I simply apply the law. But as I think about what's important in our state, why you're out here today to see Pat McCrory, to see Governor Walker, why you care passionately about our state, the same reason I do. I'm inspired by our founders, 1868, written by freed African Americans and white folks, got together in Raleigh, put in place our state constitution, reminding us that our rights, our freedoms are here, and the government is there to serve us, not to be served by us, okay? These are the words of the preamble to your state constitution. I hope they encourage you as they do me. We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon God for the continuation of those blessings to us and to our posterity. We are that posterity. By God's grace, we have these freedoms and liberties. Let's fight hard to maintain those. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, 10-second announcement. 30% of North Carolinians that show up to vote for Pat McCrory are not going to make it all the way down. Don't let ballot fatigue be a factor for your neighbors and friends. I will be at the door with these cards, a list of conservative judicial candidates. Thank you for letting us speak. We are going to literally take a break of less than 5 minutes. We'll be right back with our main program this evening. You see a lot of ads out right now, and you see the governor and the lieutenant governor together. You've seen those. It's so true. They are truly, truly one and the same. For 20 years, whether it be in the legislature, or whether it be as lieutenant governors, or whether it be as governor, they have spent your money and they've sent you the bill in higher taxes. There's only one thing that I don't like about the ad, and it just shows their face. Because the truth be known, folks, if they would pan back and have a full body shot, you would find out that they are literally attached at the hip. And I don't know about you folks, but if I have anything to do with it, and with your help, let's keep them attached at the hip. Let's make sure that they are not near the governorship this year, and let's get Pat McCrory elected. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce years. And they have done that in incredibly tough times. But they've done that by being entrepreneurs, by going to the customer instead of the customer coming to you. They have done that because they've hired the best and they've taken care of their employees. And they are one of the quality manufacturers in the woven goods industry. They are on cutting edge of innovation. And even more importantly, all that's great. And yes, I'm so glad they're here. But let me tell you something. This family gives back to the community. This family gives back to the community and has done it for decades. We are so grateful to have folks like the Coplands and the Copland family in Alamance County. And on behalf of all the citizens, Jason, I want to give you a heartfelt thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for having me. You know, when they asked me to introduce Pat McCrory, I just wanted to make it personal and give a good story here about our company's own experience with our current governor, Beverly Perdue, and I think it's very fitting for me to talk about it. You know, last summer of 2011, as part of her stump speech, she went around the state saying very unequivocally that she was here to move this state away from textiles and furniture and going to move us into high-tech manufacturing. Okay, I have news for our governor. This is high-tech manufacturing, okay? And we found that very offensive. I found it offensive for the workers that we have here, and I was not alone in that. CEOs and workers across this great state were very upset at what the governor had to say. Well, Ms. Perdue then figured out that people were upset, that you might not want to irritate 100,000 textile workers in the state of North Carolina. She had a lunch for all the CEOs, had about 30 of us at the governor's mansion. I think she served fish. Sat there, told us that she was going to be the textile governor. Anything that we want to have, we need to get with her. Introduced me to her Secretary of Commerce, Keith Crisco. Said, anything you need, he is your point man. He is the man that you need to go to, whatever you need done. We explained to her that the textile industry was a growth industry in North Carolina now. We are adding jobs in this industry right now, and the textile industry is an important key manufacturing base for the state. So then what happened? 1 week later, the Governor of Perdue, Department of Revenue, put out new depreciation schedules for textile equipment. Whereas before, we could depreciate all of our equipment down to 5% of its value, they all had to be written up to 25% of its value. My treasurer and controller came to my office, and she was in a panic. It was going to cost us $87,000 extra dollars in property taxes. That's jobs killing. So what did I do? I, of course, spent that week calling Keith Crisco every day, sent him emails, called the governor, got other CEOs involved. We all called Keith Crisco. Alan Gant called Keith Crisco. Okay? Did I ever get a response? I'll tell you the answer is no. Zero. Nothing. Okay? 4 months later in December, I got a little email from Keith Crisco. How did that tax thing go? We got it fixed, but how did I get it fixed? I got it fixed with the help of Rick Gunn. Okay? Rick Gunn went to bat for us down there, and it wasn't even his problem. This didn't come from the legislature, it came from the bureaucracy of the executive office of our governor. All right? It is time for this state to have a governor that knows what it means to be business friendly. Businesses create jobs. I am not the enemy. And it is time, and Pat McCrory understands that. Okay, and for all of you who might think, well, Jason Copland's nothing but a card-carrying Republican. That's not true. That is not true. Until 1 month ago, I was a lifelong registered Democrat. But you know what? You do not boo God at your national convention with this Christian. And I will tell you, I lived in Charlotte in the late 90s. And folks, it was a boomtown. And Pat McCrory was the mayor. I think we need to stop looking at what these people have to say and look at what they did. Look at what they do, and I will assure you that Mayor Pat McCrory is the easiest choice I've ever made in a political race in the history of my life. And with that said, I'd like to introduce our next governor, Pat McCrory.
Someplace where they make something. Let's give them a round of applause. You know, this is what I want the North Carolina economy to be all about. Because our country, our state was built on making things, building things, growing things, producing things. And every bit of our economic development policy, every bit of our education policy, every bit of our infrastructure policy, every bit of our tax policy must help those industries that build things, produce things, make things, grow things. That's what makes our country great, and that's what's going to make North Carolina great again. Don't you agree? Was speaking to the AFL-CIO last week in Raleigh. Guess what Walter Dalton said about me? He said, I'm the Scott Walker of North Carolina. I embrace that. That's better than being the Beverly Purdue of North Carolina. I said, you know what we've got to do? We've got to bring Scott Walker to North Carolina and show him that we're proud of leadership. We're proud of someone who's willing to make the tough decisions. We're proud of someone who's standing against the self-interest groups, not the groups who want to build a better state. Scott Walker is such a person. He's become a friend. He is a role model. He's a mentor. And you know what he's done? He's made Wisconsin competitive again. He's brought jobs to Wisconsin. Isn't that what we need in North Carolina right now? You know, I'm embarrassed to tell the governor. I'm embarrassed to tell the governor that we have the 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation. This is our North Carolina, the 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation. You know, when my parents brought me to Guilford County right down the road, in 1966, in 5th grade, they brought me from Columbus, Ohio, and I need to let the governor know my parents were actually born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It all comes around, doesn't it? But when my parents brought me down to Greensboro, to Guilford County, to Jamestown, they put me in the back of an old Dodge station wagon. You know those Dodge station wagons that had 3 rows? And the back row was always facing backward. They always put the last kid in the back seat facing backward. I've been getting car sick ever since. But you know why they brought us to North Carolina? Because there was unlimited opportunity. Because we had this quality of life second to none. Because we had an education system second to none. This is why I'm so glad that my dad, who was an engineer, my mom, who was a nurse, decided to bring their kids to North Carolina. And I grew up right next door where occasionally, yes, we beat your high school here, Ragsdale did. What'd you do? What'd you say? We came here, and we were proud of getting our education. I was proud of going to college at Catawba College. in Salisbury. I was proud then to move to Charlotte, where I got a job in the private sector. And by the way, I'm proud of my private sector experience. Isn't that what we need in Raleigh right now? But this was the North Carolina of unlimited protection. But the fact of the matter is, during the past 5 to 10 years, under the leadership of Easley, Perdue, and Dalton, North Carolina has lost some of its brand, but more than anything else, North Carolina has lost jobs. And there's no excuse for this state to lose jobs, because this is the best state in the United States of America. We have the best people, we have the best quality of life, we have the best resources. But the reason I'm running for governor is we need to unleash these resources. We need to reform our education system. We need to unleash the gas underneath our ground and underneath our oceans. And we need to fix the broken government that we've had in North Carolina for far too long, because when I moved to North Carolina was known for good government and good roads and good education. And we're going to return it and make it the #1 brand in all 3 of those areas again. And I'll tell you what, in order to do that, we're going to need your help. We're going to have to get the vote out. And I'm telling you right now, the other side during the next 40 days, they're going to pull out all the artillery. They're going to attack us every way you can imagine. By the way, there's one other person right behind the stage who's been attacked before, and he fought back and he won, and we're going to win too, right here in North Carolina. You know, recently a speaker for public policy polling about 8 weeks ago in Fayetteville, North Carolina, not knowing a member of the media was there, he said the following. He said, "We plan to eviscerate Pat McCrory, piece by piece until death. The only way we can prop up Walter Dalton is to go negative against McCrory. We plan to eviscerate Pat McCrory." Now, I didn't know what eviscerate meant, but I knew it was bad. I went to Ragsdale High School. I didn't go here. It was bad. And they're already starting right now. You're seeing ads from the Democratic Governors Association, from the labor unions who are coming down across the border, right in Burlington, right in Graham, all the way into Guilford County to Forsyth County. They're coming along the Piedmont, and they're going to try to tear me down. In fact, there was an ad I saw on the TV set today. When I woke up this morning, I turned on one of the personal attacks against me, and after it was showing me in a washing machine going around. It was actually a pretty good picture. But after watching that, I had to think about, should I even vote for me after watching that ad? But the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, their attacks are not going to work. Because we understand leadership, we have a vision for this state, we have a strategy for the state, and we're going to bring back jobs in North Carolina once again. And this is an example of someone who needs help from government, and some of the help they need is for us to get the heck out of the way and let them do their work. We're going to look at their taxes, we're going to look at the regulations, and we're going to start treating our businesses as customers, not adversaries. We're going to say, we're in a partnership. You're paying my bill, you're my boss, not the other way around. And let me tell you one other partner I want to have. The governor of Wisconsin. You know, one day I'm going to be competing against him for jobs and industry. And Governor, I just need to let you know, you're helping me get elected. And I can't tell you how I appreciate it. But after I'm elected, we're going to beat you down in Wisconsin. See, we like competition. We like competition. That's what it's all about. But let me tell you another thing I'm going to do with Scott Walker. We're going to work together, and we're going to turn down Obamacare next year. We're going to work with Renee Elvis. We're going to work with President Romney. Because we believe it's
it's the states where the real leadership is, and the governors believe the real power is in the private sector and the creation of jobs, and that's where we're going to return our economy back to an economy in which your kids have a future. And that's my goal, is for your kids to have a future in this state. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce a friend, a governor, a leader. And that's what people are looking for now more than ever. They're looking for leadership. Someone who's able to stand up and make the tough decisions. And there's no better role model than that. And the greatest compliment that Walter Dalton did give me was saying, I'm the Scott Walker of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Scott Walker to North Carolina.
You know, Pat, you talked about where your parents grew up and where they went to school. I grew up right down the way from Burlington. Burlington, Wisconsin. But, in fact, I was just in Dallas the other day. I said, they asked me if I was comfortable in Cowboy Stadium. I said, sure I am, because I sat right there when we won the Super Bowl. And Tony Romo's from Burlington, Wisconsin, the quarterback for the Packers, but for the Cowboys, I should say. But it's great to be here, just outside of Burlington. The Burlington I grew up near was a small town. I grew up in a small town called Delavan. So when you're thinking about growing up just down the way and then going to Charlotte, when your opponent talked about seemingly thinking he was going to knock you about a comparison, I said I took it as a compliment as well, because much like Pat, I grew up in a small town, and then I went to a big city when I went to school and worked. I saw a problem about a decade ago in Milwaukee County, which is the largest county in our state. And I said, you know what? Somebody's got to stand up and protect the taxpayers. And we did just that in Milwaukee County, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then 2 years ago, I saw, much like you see here in this state, an economic and a fiscal crisis in our state, just like we see in America today. And I said, somebody's got to do something to fix the economic and fiscal crisis. We did something amazing, which Pat's been doing for some time now as well, crisscrossing the state, conducting a job interview with the people, the employers, and in our case, I said, I want to be your CEO. Here's what we're going to do to fix your economic and your fiscal crisis in the state. And then we didn't wait a year or 6 months or even a month. We started fixing it right away. And the great thing is, I'm here to tell you today, no matter how much you might be worried about how things are, no matter how gloomy the unemployment rate might be, if you elect the right person to be your next governor, you can turn things around. That's exactly what you're going to have. It was kind of funny after I heard, I got notice as well about that statement, and I said, well, that's funny, because under this governor and lieutenant governor, the unemployment rate, sadly, last month in North Carolina creeped up to 9.7%. Much like America, North Carolina's had 44 consecutive months of unemployment above 8%, just like in America, we've had 43 consecutive months of unemployment above 8%. Some of you may have seen the football game last night. So it's good to know that I'm not alone. It's not just Packer fans. We had something wrong with the replacement referees. But I said, you know, if the majority of Americans can understand that it's time to get the replacement reps out and put somebody in who can do the job, a majority of Americans should know we need a new chief executive to get this country on the right track as well. My friend Paul Ryan, I grew up in Burlington, or I grew up near Burlington, and between Burlington and Janesville, where Paul grew up, is Delavan, where I grew up. He said something earlier today about that game as well. I think it was about right. He said putting these referees in charge of the NFL rule calling is kind of like putting a community organizer in charge of the world's largest economy. Here in North Carolina, if you've had 44 months of unemployment above 9%, if you sadly had the unemployment rate creep up to 9.7%, which we know those are numbers. We talk a lot about numbers, but they really are. Somebody in your home, somebody goes to church with you, somebody whose kids go to school with your kids, somebody who lives down the block from you who's either unemployed or underemployed. And that's a real problem. It's not just about some commercial, it's not just about some statistics, it's a real problem. I'm here to give you some hope Not only that you can elect a new governor, but more importantly, that governor, that Pat, will do the job to get your friends, your neighbors, your church members, and others back to work, because we did it. We did it 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, in our state, where Democrats controlled everything, Democrat governor, Democrat assembly, Democrat senate, at that point the unemployment rate was above 9%. We lost 150,000 jobs in the 3 years before I took office. Last year, we fundamentally turned things around. We lowered the tax burden, streamlined the regulatory process, so what we enforce is about common sense, not about bureaucratic red tape. So we help employers like our great host here today. We reined in out-of-control frivolous lawsuits. Sound familiar to things Pat's talking about? You know what? It worked. 2 years ago when I ran for governor, just 10% of our employers, 10%, thought Wisconsin was heading in the right direction. This year, you know how many employers think we're heading in the right direction? 94% say Wisconsin. That's important because for your fellow citizens in North Carolina who are looking for work, there's hope. But the hope only comes if you put the right leadership in place. You see, we went with unemployment above 9%. We went from losing more than 100,000, almost 150,000 jobs, to a point where we're gaining jobs, where the unemployment rate this year dropped to the lowest it's been in the last 4 years, and where we're heading in the right direction. You can do that. But elections have consequences. Either you go down the path of continuing the out-of-control policy that had put thousands of your fellow citizens here in North Carolina out of work. We saw it under Governor Perdue. We see it under your lieutenant governor. You're going to see it continued if he's elected as your next governor. Or we can take someone who's got a proven track record in Charlotte of focusing on economic development and education reform to put more people back to work, to improve the quality of life, to make this a great state just like he did in his city. That's what Pat's going to get you as your next governor. But to do that, we need your help. You see, to win, I say it takes the 3 M's. Message, manpower, and money. Message, manpower, and money. We got the right message. You know, we said in our election, we had something like $85 million spent in our election in the recall. Can you believe that? We're a state of about 5.5 million people. They pounded that much money. They started a year and a half ago. The big national unions came in and they poured all this money, all these attacks, all these lies out there. And you know what? We started way behind. And we just kept focusing on the truth. You repeat the truth over and over and over and over and over. So many times, I used to say, you repeat it so many times, you sound like a broken record. Until my boys who are 18 and 17 said, Dad, nobody knows what a record is anymore. So you do it like a repeating iPod or scratch CD or something like that. But you repeat the truth over and over and over again. And the best way for us to do that is on the phones, at the doors, with the signs and the banners at the rallies. Make it a commitment between now, and I know probably most all of you have helped out already. You wouldn't be here today if you hadn't. But I need you to do more. I need you to do more. People might say, well, why is a governor from Wisconsin? Why not I'm just happy if it's staying in Wisconsin? Well, I know. I've got 2 reasons. One's named Matt, the other's named Alex. You see, not only in my state, but across America, I know if I want my kids to inherit a better America than the one I grew up in, if I want to inherit an America at least as great as the one I grew up in, I've got to see a fundamental shift in America today. And as much as I want a new president, a new Senate, and to continue the Congress majority out there, I know in the end that real change is not going to happen from Washington. It's going to happen in our state houses, and it only happens if you elect good men and women to lead our states. We looked at the unemployment rate all across America. And if you compared the states led by Republican governors versus Democrat governors, on average across the board, states led by Republicans had a 1% lower unemployment rate than the states led by Democrats. It does make a difference who you put in office. That's why you got to put that right. So we need your help with the message. We need your help with the manpower on the doors and the grassroots. And we need to help us out financially, because you see all the attacks, you see the money spinning around outside and elsewhere. You know, they look at the poll numbers and some people might say, oh, you know, Pat's got it in the bag, but you cannot count on it. This presidential election in your state, in my state, and a lot of other states is going to be photo finish. It's going to be right down to the last minute. And you can't assume just because more people stand today with Pat, that doesn't mean that suddenly a push in the presidential race might not have an impact on that turnout. So even when it comes to money, and a lot of times people think it's all about big money. It's not about big money. I raised $37 million in my recall election. Unbelievable. 3 times the record of what we'd had before. But 77% of it came from people who gave me $50 or less. $50 or less. So not just for those that you think are at fundraisers, but for every person who gives $20 or $25 or $30 out there, it makes a difference. It helps. If someone gives $20, chances are they're going to be vested in turning out to go and vote because they feel vested in this candidate, invested in his leadership in the future. But most importantly, if you've done all the doors, if you made the calls, if you recruited other people to donate and help out with the campaign, the most important thing you can do for us between now and November 6th is spread the message. Spread the message. And let me just end by telling you why I think it's so important. A lot of times when I do introduction, I get introduced at events like this, sometimes people will throw around a word called courageous. Because I always find it funny that politics is the only profession where you get called courageous just by keeping your word, right? I mean, everywhere else it's expected. But I got to tell you, while courage may be fleeting in politics, I think you've got it in Pat. What he's done as the mayor in Charlotte, what he's going to do in his vision for moving the state forward. But I think it's not anything that's unique to the two of us standing up here on this podium. You see, when I tour factories like this and I talk to employees like yours, when I meet people like you here helping out with this cause, I meet moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas before them, just like Tonette and I, who go to work every day, who work hard for a living, whether it's at a farm or a factory or small business, who go to work hard not just to put food on the table, not just to put clothes in the backs of our kids. We go to work hard because we want the same thing. We want our kids and our grandkids to have a better life than we did. Isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that fundamentally what it's all about? So the funny thing is, it might be courageous in politics to think about the next generation more than we do about the next election. But when you find a leader like Pat who's willing to do that, who's willing to stand up and make the tough decisions that'll get your not only your economy back on track, but your finances back on track, to make your government work better for the people he's duly elected to serve, it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime type opportunities. When you've got someone who ultimately is going to think more about that next generation of our kids and our grandkids than just about the next election, that's someone you've got to stand up for and work hard for and put the extra time in. That's why I'm here today, to encourage all of you to do the same, and that's why I know on November 6th, not only is North Carolina going to win, but the rest of the country is going to win. We get another great leader and another great state. Thank you so much.
This is a guy whose team lost last night at 12 midnight to a bad call. A bad call on which a quarterback who played at NC State and Wisconsin, Russell Wilson, threw the pass, right? Great guy. But it was a bad call. Instant replay couldn't correct that call last night. Ladies and gentlemen, North Carolina made a bad call in 08. Would you agree with that? We've got a chance for instant replay in 12 to fix it, to correct the call, and to make this economy grow again. That's our goal. I do want to introduce real quick, just to the stage, a very good friend of mine, who was a friend of mine when I was at Ragsdale High School. He's a great U.S. Congressman. Ladies and gentlemen, he was my representative. He's been your representative. I want to introduce the Honorable Howard Coble.